the big focus that we have for you this evening is what is going to happen in China tomorrow. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, after completing his visit to Japan, has arrived in China for the biggest summit of this entire year. We're talking about the SCO Summit. As we speak, he is in Tianjin in China, where he is set to attend the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. In fact, he received a warm welcome upon his arrival. And viewers, this marks the Prime Minister's first visit to China in 7 years. And a lot of people in India, across the world, are looking at the developments in China very, very closely, because many are saying that this is like an opportunity for both the countries, India and China, to reset the ties that nosedived, especially after Galwan clash. Since 2020, we know how the relationship between both the countries has been coming, down. Things were not very good, but since last year, we have seen efforts also that were made by both these countries to improve the relationship. And now the latest push came from Trump's tariff strike. Remember, India was in fact struck with 50% tariff by Donald Trump. India has not retaliated. However, China supported India, and we have seen in last few months specifically both countries making efforts, and that's the reason why, despite this SCO summit, which is a routine summit which happens annually, this particular summit and Prime Minister's visit to China is being watched very, very closely, because this is his first visit to China since the 2020 Galwan clashes, and a crucial one that also comes amid the ongoing tariff war with the United States of America. The SCO Summit will also see coming together of some of the world's biggest leaders from the global south, and many are calling it a show of global south solidarity, something that Donald Trump is going to be watching out for as well, very, very carefully. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi is likely to have a bilateral with Chinese President Xi on the sidelines of the SCO Summit. That is going to be extremely important as well. And joining me live right now is my colleague Swati Joshi, who is live in China, where all the action is. Swati, I will again say ni hao. I know it's been a long day for you, but tell us what exactly happened through the day. What kind of reception did Prime Minister Modi receive in China when he arrived earlier?
Well, ni hao and huaying to times now. That's all the Chinese I could
What does
learn
that mean, the other word that you use?
Well, it was an eventful day. Prime Minister Narendra Modi received a rousing welcome at the Wanda Vista Hotel. When he walked in, there were chants of Bharat Mata Ki Jai and Modi, Modi. They were only getting louder. Apart from that, there were cultural performances to welcome Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And the beauty of those cultural performances was that they were Chinese citizens who were performing Indian dances like Bharatnatyam and Kathak. And there was a tabla vadak, a santoor vadak. I spoke to them as well. All these people have helped not just preserve but keep the Indian culture and tradition alive here in China. These are Chinese nationals we're talking about. So, that speaks volumes about the kind of people-to-people connect that we already have. And that's something which is a very important aspect of the Prime Minister's visit abroad. A huge diaspora gathered at the hotel to welcome the Prime Minister, and they were all excited to catch a glimpse of him. All of them feel that special connect, that bond with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. It's a regular feature whenever he goes outside, because he realizes that power of having an Indian diaspora, and he addresses them. He makes it a point that no matter how tired he is, because we know he came to China from Japan after a productive engagement, like he called it, but there was no tiredness on his face. He had a warm smile about the Prime Minister and how kind he is. Getting back to the event, SCO Summit, which in fact is the biggest diplomatic summit which is happening. Yes, tomorrow is going to be a big, big day, because tomorrow is the bilateral everybody is looking forward to. Like you said, Hina, there are leaders from over 20 countries who are here in Tianjin to attend the SCO Summit, but everybody is talking about the most important bilateral, which is between the Chinese President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So that's the big ticket event which will take place tomorrow.
Well, absolutely. We are all going to be looking forward to the outcomes of that bilateral. Of course, SCO Summit is important as well for optics, for what really happens after that, the document that's likely to be signed as well. All of that is important, but the most important aspect of this visit of the Prime Minister, of course, is his bilateral with President Xi. It's his first visit after 7 years. And since you mentioned about the people that you spoke to who welcomed in a very interesting manner Prime Minister Narendra Modi, I want to play out in fact that interaction of yours so that our viewers also get a glimpse of how Prime Minister Modi was welcomed in China earlier today.
Well, there were cultural performances for Prime Minister Narendra Modi when he arrived here at the Wanda Vista Hotel, but this Jugalbandi was really, really special. I am joined by Tabla Vadak Sangeeta, and that's her Indian name, and special. I am joined by Tabla Vadak Sangeeta, and that's her Indian name, and that's Santoor Vadak Mimi. Now, tell us, Sangeeta, how did you develop interest in tabla?
It's over 10 years. Before that, at that time, I was doing my PhD about Indian music, and I chose because I like rhythm, so that's why I chose tabla for as my.
You've done PhD in Indian music?
Yes, in CCOM, Central Conservatory of China, of music. So I did PhD there.
And for how long have you been playing tabla?
Over 10 years, maybe 16 years.
And what about you, Mimi? When did you develop interest in santoor?
Actually, I'm a Chinese santoor player. In China, santoor called yang is in a different shape because I know santoor is a word family instrument. So my PhD work is focused on the improvisation of Indian classical music on santoor. So I started to learn from Panipata support.
Did you get a chance to speak to Prime Minister Modi?
Yes.
He's very nice. He asked us where you learn from your instrument and from. We answered him our Guruji's name and how long. I started to learn santoor from since 5 or 6 years ago.
You've been playing since you were 5 years old?
No, Chinese. 5 or 6 years ago.
Oh,
yes.
So how was it interacting with the Prime Minister?
Wow, he is so kind of person. Because we never expected to take photos with him, and he agreed. Then we are so excited and thankful.
Yes. Can I trouble you a little bit? Can you just play something for our viewers?
Okay. Yes.
What a lovely interaction there it was. And Swati Joshi, my colleague, is live from China as we speak, and we are now joined by our guest. We have Dr. Swaran Singh, Professor of the International Relations at JNU. We also have with us Ms. Veena Sikri, former diplomat. Good evening to both of you. Thank you for joining us here on Times Now. Dr. Swaran Singh, if I could come to you, what is it that you are going to be watching out for as far as the bilateral tomorrow is concerned? A lot of experts that we've spoken to, some are of the view that it is in fact a resetting of ties, and some are saying that we have to be a little cautious as well, because while on one hand there is trade deficit, there is also trust deficit vis-a-vis China. But what are your expectations?
There is no doubt. Most of us are in India and will be watching particularly the bilateral meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping and the outcomes from that meeting. But let me underline, the other two levels are equally interesting. There is likelihood after 2018 of a trilateral meeting of President Putin, President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Modi once again to bring back the Russia, India, China strategic triangle, which again has to be understood in the backdrop of tensions between India and the United States, which both Beijing and Moscow have no reason to celebrate. I mean, they have no reason not to celebrate, and then try to wean India into that trilateral. And of course, Shanghai Cooperation as well. The summit meeting, again, if you remember, last year happened partly. The heads of government meeting happened in Islamabad, heads of state meeting happened in Kazakhstan. Before that, in 2023, India was hosting the summit meeting. At that time, India was very focused on G20 summit meeting. So SCO Summit meeting happened, a short one at online. So for even Shanghai Cooperation Organization, India going back with sort of full interest is also going to reflect. So it's an extension of what China and India want to bring to the table together, and then what they want to do in a trilateral along with Russia and also in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And you can notice how entire Western media is carefully looking at it, and many of them are actually beginning to blame tariffs by President Trump as the reason pushing India into what is already a no-limits partnership of Russia and China, which is bringing India in and creating Shanghai Cooperation Organization way beyond the regional organization. So the decisions they take, the kind of body language they showcase, let me underline, between China and India, because of ancient civilizations, symbolisms are very critical. So note their language, but more important, note the body language. You would remember in 2018 and 19, President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Modi had walked together in Wuhan and Mamallapuram here in India. And that had sent a very different message to the Western world. So in some ways, we are seeing that replicated with perhaps far greater enthusiasm this time. So whether it is bilateral meeting of Indian Prime Minister with Chinese President, or the triangular relationship of Russia, China, India, and of course the larger multilateral of 20 plus countries sitting together here in Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is also rekindling its influence and aura in that sense. So at all three levels, I think the meetings are going to be very, very interesting.
When you say the India, China, Russia trilateral happening, you mean half the BRICS. And the last time when there was a successful BRICS summit, Donald Trump was irked. Would you agree with the theory doing the rounds that, West is not able to keep its alliance together, West alliance is disintegrating, whereas the Eurasia summit and the partners here in the Asian continent are coming together in a stronger way? That perhaps is one of the reasons why Donald Trump has cast a long shadow on this Eurasian summit.
Is that a question to me?
Ms. Veena Singhvi.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. I think I would like to point out one thing. I think what Professor Swaran Singh has said is correct, that this is the history of what is a relationship. But I think we have to remember what happened in 2020, because there were two things. Before 2020, based on agreements that we have already concluded with China on peace and tranquility along the border, certain principles had been agreed upon. So since those principles were agreed upon, we were quite happy with setting the border issue on one side and proceeding with the trade and cultural and other aspects of the relationship between India and China. But in 2020, when Galwan happened, that trust was broken. And the agreed agreements were set aside, were torn apart, as it were. So that has come as a big shock to India, and that is why after the Galwan situation in 2020, there was a sudden dip, a complete dip in the relationship between India and China. And two or three things have happened very clearly since then, that our leaders, Prime Minister Modi, Dr. Jaishankar, they've clearly mentioned that peace and tranquility at the border is a must.
Right.
For any other relationship to develop. You cannot develop any relationship until there is peace and tranquility at the border. So I think this is what we are looking for. And we know that, yes, last year at Kazan, during the BRICS summit, when Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping had a bilateral, that was the first kind of a thaw that, yes, we can talk. At that time, you know that then there was some kind of a thing, the patrolling at the Galwan border, depths and all that was resumed and all that. But we have to now talk about disengagement, the next step. Can we move back to our peacetime areas so that we can actually then be fairly sure that they will not have a sudden clash or a sudden change? They are very, very sensitive and difficult matters. The border issues have always been very difficult. So I think that we will be looking, everybody will be looking in the joint statement or the result of the discussion to see whether there's any progress on this. And it's also true that right now China also has an interest in India. They are looking for markets because...
And we also have to see what happens after that, whether that, you know, of course we know that border issues are bound to come up, but what comes out of it, that's going to be an important thing to watch out for. I'm completely out of time. Appreciate both of you, Professor Singh and Ms. Veena Sikri. Thank you for joining us here on Times Now and sharing with us your perspective. And Swati, I think it's been a long day for you, but you know, we'll keep coming back to you for the latest from China. For now, thank you.
Thank you, Hina.
Heading into a short break, we'll be back with more.